Hey everybody. So I've been noticing a pattern recently, and I've noticed two things within this pattern that have made me want to make this video overall. Pattern number one is that I've noticed that businesses are becoming more and more skeptical around AI. And pattern number two is that I've noticed that some of my very biggest competitors, like absolute biggest competitor, are starting to struggle, like overall, right? I'm not gonna name or call anybody out on that on any level whatsoever, right? But I've heard like conversations like around like big people like that I wouldn't think of that are started the work within like the general like gold rush type of work within AI is starting to dry up, right? Like there's, I mean, like I'll put it exactly what it is, right? There's a period like for a year or so, I'd say, like honestly, like up until like mid this year, so like mid 2024 up until like mid 2025, where it was just like complete AI agent hype, right? Where it was like, I mean, it didn't like your credentials didn't matter, like none of it mattered, right? You're just installing ChatGPT for people anyway, and then so like. It was kind of like it was like to me it was a crazy period, right? I didn't understand, like people would ask me for advice during that time. I just like you don't have to compete directly against me, right? Like it's like that's not what people want. Like people aren't looking for like the like highest and like actually like how do you implement this, right? They're like I've been told that agents work and I want agents now. And then that's like how it was for a while, right? And then they implement and then they start running into issues, and then here we are now where it's like all of a sudden um, companies are more skeptical because of those things, as they should be. And then that is like drying up, and that's just the typical approach of what happens within these things, right? That's just a typical life cycle overall of these things. I think that people overall, like they have and had this expectation that money would be able to just solve this problem and fix it overall, right? But that's like people to me from the beginning have had like a complete misunderstanding overall with regards towards this AI problem, AI overall, etc. Right? And I've been saying these things for jump for 3 years now, and like I think like the simplest way that I can frame it and put it is that I can clearly define what type of company I built up at this point, right? For a long time, I struggled with that. So I like my company is a geometry company. Like I'm not an AI company. I'm not a tech company, etc. Right? Like I focus very specifically on geometry and physics. Like and then that is very specifically what propels me and what has made me a differentiator in this space. Right? Like I mean, essentially, like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I made the exact same approach and decisions as everyone else, right? Like I look at this, I took a look and I look overall at this landscape and this changing landscape, and I realized that there's going to be a like people were calling it at the time like this fourth industrial revolution. Like people were big on that, right? And that was like the big term overall. And then so to me, like I envisioned it as that, but I was like I want to understand and be at the very, very forefront of this incoming revolution, right? And that's the goal that I set out for myself within that from the beginning, right? Because like so, my career is overall 25 years at this point of IT, and like a lot of it in sales and marketing enablement. That's where I've been like a lot of my focus in those areas comes in, right? But so within that and around that, to me, those things are changing, going away, and being modified overall by all of this technology. And for a while, I've been at the kind of forefront of those, technologies in that spaces, but like never at the uh, very like there's all like would all there's always going to be someone that is a better IT person overall than me, right? I would never like I'm not in any category in any realm going to be in any like conversation or talk overall for like the best coder, the best uh, person that understands the Salesforce ecosystem the best, or the Microsoft Azure ecosystem, or Google Cloud Platform, AWS, whatever it is, right? Docker, like it doesn't matter, like anything across the board, right? But when it comes to AI overall, I realized that there's like so, like, especially 3 years ago, there's like not enough knowledge within that space overall for people to understand. And then so my very first approach within it was I'm going to take 2 years, and that's exactly what I did to fully understand this technology backwards and forwards, right? And then like once I understand exactly how it works, then I'll make my assumptions and go forward from there and start growing from there, essentially, right? Like once I have the foundation settled, and then for a while there, like it looked like the wrong bet, like flat, like there were people, like again, it was just like you didn't need the knowledge, you just had to install ChatGPT, right? And then it's like I like for a while it's it was kind of stupid, right? Like why am I just like giving up money within that? But then, now here we are, and then we're in essentially what I call the AI reckoning period. And then, so to me, like over the last few years, world has thrown extraordinary amounts of money, talent, and energy into AI, and yet we're now watching many of the loudest companies in the space begin to struggle, stall, or collapse. Meanwhile, we have been on a consistent upward trajectory. To me, again, it just wasn't pure luck, right? It's 100% strategy built on choosing what not to chase within this. And that's the bottom line within this. To me, like the most simplistic way that I can frame this overall, I framed it exactly this way to lots of people for multitudes of years now, right? And it's like I think it's just now at the point where this can actually click on a mainstream level and people can start understanding it and internalizing it. To me, AI overall and directly is worth $0. Like AI is not directly monetizable in any way. It is there's profit to be made in and from AI, but AI itself is not directly monetizable and is worth $0. And even worse than that, AI has been proven to be worth less than $0 simply because of the fact that it essentially eats money like it's its job if you invest it into the wrong areas of AI overall. And it's super easy to do within that, right? And if you don't understand the actual underlying equation, you don't understand the actual physics of the equation, it's super easy to just fall into that hole, right? And to me, I think we're like this second half of this year, we're starting to see that. I call it the AI reckoning overall, right? Where the assumptions that powered the early hype are colliding with the actual physics of intelligence, and most of the industry bet on the wrong assumptions, flat out. And to me, I can break that down overall, right? And into what the patterns that I've been noticing over these last 3 years and talking about overall from the beginning, right? Compared to everyone else within this. And then so number one is that the industry went all in on agents, right? When GPT-4 landed, nearly everyone rushed to build agents, AI systems that perform tasks autonomously. To me, when I broke that down, understood the actual engineering problem with that, simple, right? You can't have autonomous agents if the underlying model has no memory or identity. Currently, LLMs forget their own reasoning the moment that the context clears. They don't maintain a sense of self, purpose, continuity, or internal narrative. So what did we get? We're getting agents that are brittle, agents that fail silently, agents that hallucinate confidence, and agents that require constant human babysitting. In other words, automation theater. Our decision overall is that we didn't choose and chase agents. We focused on memory continuity and resonance stability, the actual prerequisites for agency. So everyone else tried to automate behavior. We focused on stabilizing identity and focusing on that particular problem and that focusing on their overall. Other thing to me is I've been evaluating and testing AI agent frameworks and benchmarks and tests, etc., from the beginning, right? And then to me, it's like they didn't work as expected from the beginning, and then so I just started asking those questions from the beginning, right? And then to me, the I'll call it out exactly as it is. The very first company that I saw guilty of around this that like kind of really ticked me off around it was Manus AI, right? I can't wait for them to go out of business. like that like they're the like the about a month after Gorilla AI, Gorilla was like the very first um, attempt at solving API agents, right? Like about a month or 2 weeks after that, Manus was the first ones to come out with a big advertising blitz, which is exactly how they were able to put themselves into that forefront position. And then, now you see companies like that struggling overall. and then so it is what it is, right? And then so two is that a lot of the industry went all in on model size and models specifically overall, right? And so the big belief was that bigger models equal more intelligence, which equals a stronger moat, that this is like all around the moat, right? And then we now know that the exact opposite of this happened. The model race turned into a commodity market. Open source caught up fast. Compute efficiency mattered more than raw scale, and the moat disappeared almost overnight. Everyone ended up offering essentially the same model with different pricing. Our decision from the beginning was that we did not invest in the model arms race. We invested in architecture and geometry, how intelligence forms, not how big it gets. We focused on persistent memory, latent space stability, structural resonance, and attractor dynamics. Models are replaceable, geometry is not. This kept us out of the margin of the collapse spiral that's occurring overall right now, right? And then so, again, like to me, it all comes back down to this. And I run a geometry company, not a AI company or a tech company, and I've understood that from the beginning. Right? It's math and physics. That's what it all boils down to, and that's the era that we're in. Right? Once you get rid of the hype, it's all math and physics. Like what you can do within that, what is possible under the realm of physics, and what are you doing mathematically. And then so three, industry went all in on data as an asset. The belief was that the company with the most data will win. Focus all in on the data, right? I had countless conversations at the very beginning of this 3-year period. Like, where's the one point to go in? Everyone said this, right? And then to me, like, I paused on that and I said, wait a minute, like, everyone is saying go in on this, right? Like everyone under the sun, like this, like, if there's one area to go in on, every guru went here, right? I said, I don't know, like, let me understand this better. This makes intuitive sense, right? Like, you just, like, you narrow into it, like, of course, but like I've learned throughout my life, there's a lot of things that make intuitive sense when you experiment with them, when it comes to computation and physics, etc., right? And then you prove it out, and then the intuitive assumption doesn't always play out exactly as you think it would, and then so that's exactly what we saw within this equation, right? And then so synthetic generation and made data infinite, basically. Data lakes turned into data landfills, and owning data stopped being a defensible moat. The real strategy was never the data, it was the shape of the data, the structure, the manifold, the geometry of relationships inside of it. Our decision was that we stopped treating data as content, we treated data as shape. Instead of hoarding data, we compressed it into geometric signatures that models can learn from efficiently, safely, and privately. This gave us lower costs, faster iteration, better generalization, and zero dependency on proprietary data, while others drowned under storage bills and legal exposure overall. So, why are competitors struggling now? Because they built on assumptions that don't scale. They built on agents without identity, models without architecture, and data without structure. They were chasing the appearance of intelligence, not the conditions required for it to emerge. And then I'm not saying not going into any sort of opinions overall as to like whether or not and where that goes into from there, right? It's just my opinion from the beginning of this has been like these models are exhibiting emergent behavior. What exactly is the trace of that emergent behavior? Like, it's not Harry Potter dust, right? Like there's something, like there's always a root in physics and mathematics as to why exactly something is occurring, right? So just what exactly are the traces and the roots of that? And then to me, it's the bottom line within that is the best way that I'll frame my opinions overall within that overall are that the models and AI overall essentially operates off of I'll call it non-symbolic reasoning, right? And then whether or not you want to classify that as reasoning and then therefore intelligence is 100% up to you, right? Like I don't want to get into a semantics and definitional debate around that, but that's essentially like what my opinion is overall as to the overall occurrence within that. And I think that aligns both mathematically and with the physics that are going on within the models, right? And that's why I formulate my opinions within that. So, meanwhile, we built on the direction that reality is actually moving from size to shape, from automation to identity, from data to geometry, and from hype to pure physics. And then so to me, the next era of AI won't be won by bigger models, larger data sets, or more agents. Instead, it'll be won by stable internal world models, persistent memory, resident identity, and geometry-aware architectures. This is the shift from statistical intelligence to structural intelligence, from probability to presence overall. With regards towards this resonance, like right, like I think like a lot of people I don't know. I think there's a lot of like opinions overall around this resonance term, right? Because the models, like if you prompt the models and you talk to the models overall, they're huge with regards towards like resonant theories, and things like that overall, right? And then so to me, it's like all of my analysis around that is not based off of prompt outputs. Like so, for a long time, like my very first approach was focusing on the geometry. And then I played around with like resonance frequencies, noticed that it has an impact and had an impact overall on the geometry, but I kind of set it to the side, right? I don't understand that. That's more in the realm of like non-mathematics and harder principles to understand and prove out than geometry. So I focused on the geometry, and then I got deep into the geometry, and then I realized more and more after every single test that I'm doing, measurement, etc., that there's this element of the tests of these measurements that I'm missing. And then the element that I realize is that there's actually the frequencies that are bouncing within these geometric spaces that are what's like causing the shape to change, right? Like how do you change the shape of a latent space? You bounce frequencies within the latent space, right? And that's what creates the rain, the chasms, whatever you want to call them within that instance, right? Like how does that actually occur within this geometric projection? It occurs through frequency vibrations and waves, which makes sense overall to me, right? And then so when I talk about resonance, that's how I frame it overall. And then so reckoning is not the end, it's the beginning. We're entering the phase where the fundamentals matter again. And the fundamentals are how intelligence organizes itself, how it stabilizes its own reasoning, and how it models itself over time. This is where the real breakthroughs will come from, and this is where we are already operating. The reckoning is simply the removal of illusions. What remains is the real work, and we're already doing it. And so to me, overall, I look at this period and kind of what's going on right now with regards towards AI as a complete good thing. Like I've been waiting for this period for a while, right? Like the projects that I'm starting to get, the work that I'm starting to get is more real overall. Like people have a general direction. People are almost more skeptical overall, and I think that's fantastic, right? I love that. Like people should be more skeptical around these things, and I've been waiting for and shocked that people haven't been overall. But realize that being skeptical around these things doesn't disprove the actual research impact, etc., of these things, right? Do I think that AI is going to be 100% transformative? Like my views around all of that, like not a single ounce of that has changed from the beginning. Like I still think that's exactly. I think it will be very disruptive overall economically for people, jobs, etc. Right, and I think that there's a lot of good and bad aspects that will come out of this technology. I still hold those that mindset overall. It's just that I think that people are betting on the wrong ways that we'll get there. Like is been my mindset on that overall, and like nothing has been disproven within that, right? Like if you look at the overall progression of AI, to me, like this 3-year period has been such a, like, we've progressed so rapidly that like people don't even understand and can't really comprehend it, right? Like if you're breaking it down into like pure computational terms, like, and you're equating it and comparing it to like Moore's law, we've been operating literally like at like 4 to 6x Moore's law for 3+ years. And that's just been like, that's the flat out equation. And it hasn't slowed down. It's been getting faster. And I think that that will continue, right? And it's like, most people don't understand and grasp that aspect. And it's creating a lot of what you're seeing in this world now, which is very much divisions, right? Like people that understand this and can wrap their head around that general equation are building more and more advantage based off of that, which is creating more and more of what the world is overall. And I don't know how to stop any of that. Period, right? Just highlighting that overall. But it is a part of the equation that is very recognizable overall. And I wish more people had like just saying like, oh, this is the problem, right? Like that doesn't do anything to the problem. It doesn't solve anything. Like, cool, yeah, you recognize that it's a problem. Like what do you do from there? And I don't know that. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And so that's, to me, again, overall, I think this is a good thing overall, but it's both good and bad, and that is what it is. And so just keeping it real. And if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.